for delivery on courier services at ke.nationmedia.com or call 0719 038 739.
This is NTV.
Morning, East Africa. My name is Gladys Gashande, and today we take a look at the future of work, careers and business. All this greatly necessitated by the disruption that is COVID-19. Now, our panel of specialists in their fields will help us shed light on the new normal in the spheres of work, careers and business, and share tips on how to ride the tide and come out on top. Here now is what else you can expect on this broadcast. Jobs lost, jobs gained. What does the future of work mean for job skills and wages?
The order to reopen is given conditionally.
The restrictions have been loosened, but the country is still in the tight grip of the virus.
Choosing whether or not to change careers can be tough. In order to make the right decision, it's important to evaluate the reasons you're interested in making that change.
With jobs being lost, people are looking for alternative ways to make ends meet. But with that in play, you need to be strategic in changing from one career to another. Mohammad Jahanzeb, the managing director of a Pakistani supermarket in Dubai, delivers mangoes to local families in a Lamborghini Huracan sports car. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. As I had mentioned earlier, our conversation today focuses on the future of work, careers and business in the face of a disruption that is COVID-19. And our question of the day to you is, how has COVID-19 affected your source of income? How has COVID-19 affected your source of income? Could be work, could be business, whatever it is you are up to before the pandemic. How does that look like for you in these uncertain times? Remember, you can talk to us, #NewNormal on our social media platforms, and you can also call us or text us using that number at the bottom of your screen. And speaking about the disruption of COVID-19, there are those who have been infected with the virus. Let's look at those numbers globally. That number stands at 11,739,169 people confirmed to have COVID-19. 6,641,866 have recovered from the same, and unfortunately 540,660 people have succumbed to COVID-19. And now closer home, And the government yesterday mentioned that 118,701 Kenyans have been tested, and out of those, 3,727 have been confirmed to have the virus, and 104 so far have died of COVID-19. But thankfully, 1,286 people have fully recovered from the same. Now, a look at the African scene. We look at Ethiopia, where the numbers stand at 3,345 people confirmed to have the COVID-19 disease. Unfortunately, 57 have succumbed to the same, and thankfully 545 have recovered. In Somalia, the number stands at 2,618 people confirmed to have COVID-19. The deaths are at 88 people. Recovered cases stand at 577. South Sudan, 1,693 people confirmed to have COVID-19. 27 have confirmed to this condition, and 49 thankfully have recovered. In Uganda, those numbers stand at 819 confirmed cases. There are no deaths in that country this far, and 299 people have recovered from the same. In Rwanda, 582 people confirmed to have COVID-19. 2 deaths this far from Rwanda, and 332 people recovered from the same. Well, those numbers keep trickling in on a daily, and we'll keep you updated on the same as soon as we get them. Now, yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta definitely made an announcement that most were looking forward to, but despite those warnings to claw back on the freedoms in the event the number of infections rise for the president, it was always a balance between the economic and the health debate. NTV's Kennedy Murithi reports on the tough choice and on the typical habits of Kenyans who, soon after the relaxation measures were announced, were already preparing to travel up country, raising fears that the virus could spread in the counties.
Fellow Kenyans,
from his opening remarks, one would tell President Uhuru Kenyatta was battling hard choices, as it is understood. The decision to reopen the country had not been unanimous. To the president, it was still a tough balance between saving lives and livelihoods, and none of these choices is a fair trade-off. But just as the country has been ravaged by the coronavirus, the economy has taken a battering with thousands of job cuts. The National Security Council thus had to find a compromise.
the order to reopen is given conditionally. Should the situation deteriorate and pose a challenge to our health infrastructure, we will have to revert back to lockdown. In the next 21 days, we shall study patterns of interactions and the spread of the disease.
The president noted the choice to reopen had its proponents and opponents, with the counties now having to take up the responsibility for managing and treating infected people moving through their territories.
We have not yet met 100%, but we have met a reasonable level of preparedness across our counties.
And in almost predictable fashion, thousands had already booked up to travel up country. A spot check in some of the city's public transport termini showed a surge in the number of people seeking to leave the capital. However, public transport operators will have to conform to Ministry of Health guidelines and obtain clearance certificates before they can begin operations.
By reopening Nairobi, Mombasa, and Mandera, we must be cognizant of the fact that we are all much more at risk than we were when the restrictions were in place.
An hour after his speech, buses plying the Garissa route based in Isili had received numerous calls for bookings, just like many other bus companies.
Sasa tumekupatia nafasi. Waweza utoke Nairobi, uende Nyeri, uende Kakamega, uende Machakos, uende pahali popote. Lakini ujue jukumu ni lako.
I don't know when we'll be able to resume operations, mainly because of other conditions that we need to fulfill. called the certification of the PSV driver.
The president has actually summed up his speech with one clarion call to Kenyans that it all depends with them with how this disease is going to be tackled moving forward, noting that the numbers have been rising by the day. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV in Nairobi County.
Now, in the age of the coronavirus, touching and reaching souls had to take on a whole new meaning as religious leaders had to minister without violating health practices. But worship places are now taking a leap of faith and could reopen in 3 weeks, but under strict protocols to ensure safety of congregants. Now, Ngina Kirori has more on some of these conditions that churches have to meet.
As fears over the coronavirus rippled through the country, places of worship had to take precaution and change their worship traditions, like communing without a community for social distancing. But that could change in just 3 weeks.
Individuals can attend worship in strict conformity with all applicable guidelines and protocols, including the self-regulating guidelines that have been developed by our friends of the Interfaith Council.
The churches had earlier argued that just like the rest of the population, they too had been hit by the harsh social and economic effects of the pandemic. The president announced the formation of an Interfaith Council to look into a safe reopening of places of worship. The team recommended that only a maximum of 100 worshippers be allowed in at a time. Church services will not be longer than 1 hour, that those aged between 13 years old and those aged over 58 years old are not allowed to attend church sessions, and those with underlying health conditions such as diabetes, asthma, heart disease, among others, will not be allowed into church services as they are among the at-risk groups. Madrasas and Sunday school services are also still prohibited, but despite this reprieve, mosques and churches will still have to navigate these safety concerns, as places of worship, much as they are a source of comfort, can also be a ripe ground for the spread of the virus. Among those concerns is how churches will identify those with or without underlying health conditions. Now, 3 weeks from now, this church compound could be filled with congregants for the first time in nearly 5 months, a sure sign of relief for those who have been forced to worship in their houses. But the House on the Hill will also be monitoring the patterns of the coronavirus to determine whether the guidelines will continue on or not. Ngina Kirori, NTV, Nairobi.
And still on the same subject, the president underlined his decision to reopen the country with a call to the country to exercise personal responsibility to stem the spread of the virus. Listen in.
That shall be based on the behavior of each and every one of us individually. So therefore, fellow Kenyans, to reopen and to remain open, you must become your brother's keeper. You must become your sister's keeper. This, therefore, is not just a call to reopen our country, but it is also a national call to civic responsibility.
Personal responsibility, very key, even as we endeavor to flatten the curve. Now to something that puts us at the path of our conversation today. COVID-19 has given birth to a reality most of us thought was impossible. The globe that was once a village has become smaller, thus creating more job opportunities. Watch this clip by Nas Daily on the synopsis on what the future of work looks like.
Last week, I said COVID-19 will be here for at least 2 years. I was wrong. COVID-19 will be here for 100 years, and it will change our lives forever. But how exactly? Well, here is my best guess. Office. The office is dead. In a lockdown, it's illegal to open them. So companies are realizing Wow, I don't need an office. I don't need to pay $1 million in rent when all my employees can work from home. Google and Facebook just announced that all their employees do not need to come to an office until 2021. Jobs. Many jobs can be done remotely. You just need the internet. So when COVID-19 hit, millions of people drove out of New York back to their homes to be with their family. They realized, why do I need to pay $2,000 a month for a small apartment just to live in a big city? Yes, cities. They will not be the same. People are realizing they don't like the traffic, the noise, and the pollution. They can work next to very exciting nature. So, in the future, millions of people will immigrate from cities to farms, to beaches, to small towns. And that means New York City, New Delhi, and every other major city will not be the same after COVID-19. For one, they will have a lot less traffic. Talent. This is the most exciting part. If you don't need to be in the office, then Google can hire you wherever you are in the world. Which means if you are a genius living in Indonesia or Iceland or Zimbabwe, Google will hire you right from your bedroom. You just need to have talent. You don't need a US visa. You don't need to immigrate. You don't need to relocate. You don't need to go to the office. In fact, last month, I hired 3 people without ever meeting them in person. It was all done online. This is why COVID-19 will be around for 100 years. The virus will disappear, but its effects will be around for a long time. Once we realize our jobs can be done remotely, we will not want to be stuck in traffic paying $2,000 for a small apartment just to get to an office. COVID-19 is a global tragedy, but it's a historic one, and it will change our lives, our jobs, our offices, and our countries forever. Which means this is the time to finally get a stronger Wi-Fi. See you next week.
NAS Daily, they're putting into perspective our reality as a globe, and clearly that global village has become even smaller. So how does this look like for us here in Kenya, and what is the future of work, careers and business for you? Well, let's take a look at this, and we'll be walked into this path, or onto this path, by Juliet Gateri, who is the founder of Alternate Doors, which is a consulting, which is a human resource and recruitment solutions company. Thank you for joining us. We have 3T engineer who's joining us virtually. She is a lecturer at Strathmore University, part-time, but she's also a career and development coach. Thank you for your time. We're also joined by Joram Wenamo, who is a co-founder and managing partner at Wild. He'll tell us more about what they do there. Tesh Mbabu, he is a technology entrepreneur. Thank you for your time. And of course, we have George Owala, who is a country director at VSO, which is Voluntary Service Overseas. Thank you to all for joining us. And I'll start off with you, Juliet. I mean, that video has just put in a nutshell how our world looks like looking forward. But even as we experience it firsthand, clearly working from home has become the norm. How does now that change the atmosphere in the office? What does that mean for work?
Personally, what I've experienced with most of my clients, even in my office,
yes,
people even prefer working from home. So of course, when we started out in April, we had a lot of issues. So people had to adapt into me working from home, a lot of disruptions. But after a while now, people now started coming up with a schedule. So from this time to this time, I'll do my workout. From this time to this time, I'll start working. So what you'd find, people prefer working from home. There's less commute, like we've seen from that video.
Yes.
So less traffic and less wasting of time. So you're able to achieve your goals faster. And then you're able to also have a work-life balance.
Yes.
So you're able to work out, spend time with your with your family, with your kids, with your pets. So you're finding there's the bad things are there, yes, the disruptions, and of course the lack of infrastructure. So many people are complaining about lack of proper internet, and sometimes electricity goes off. But majority of the things that we've talked about are the good ones. Yes.
Okay, now Joram, clearly this is just something that has been emphasized on. It has been there, but now it's become a reality for the employers. Clearly, this is something we cannot go back to doing business as usual, right?
Yeah, definitely people have to rethink how offices are going to run, especially for employers in the short term. A lot of considerations around how is the business going to operate. And as Juliet says, a lot of people have been able to operate from home. But you have certain industries that are grappling with the fact that the work requires to be done physically, and therefore if people are going to come in, you've seen in all the pronouncements, there's very strict guidelines in terms of how people operate when they come into the office. So employers are really grappling with how do we make sure people are safe. Are we putting our employees in danger when we ask them to come to the office, and is there a liability for us as employers? So there's a lot of issues to consider even as we reopen. So certain industries have to really look at the different measures that the government is proposing, ask themselves, like the transport operators. I think we just saw that people are booking to travel back to up country.
Yeah.
But if we're going to do social distancing in the in the bus, how is that going to work, or how are we going to keep people safe? How do we keep our employees safe when they come into the workspaces? So that's probably the top of mind concern for employers at this point.
Okay, now Tesh, you are a technology entrepreneur. COVID-19 has come with a silver lining of farming, a journey that you started when you were only 18 years old, right?
Yeah, so that's the case. I think it's time businesses are thinking about how to re-engineer their processes and digitize, given that people have to work remotely, meetings have to be held virtually, and generally things are changing, and technology is really a huge instrument into how that happens.
Okay, so social distancing is one element that really has changed how we do business. For you, what does that mean even for those that you work with, and of course executing your mandate?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge has been, so lucky enough as a technology company, we already had partial remote engagements with both consultants and with our employees. However, we've had to really figure out how to get our clients to be able to do this, and communicating with them virtually hasn't been easy, because especially with decision makers, it's been a challenge to transition into being able to work over Zoom calls. And as you see, just having like interviews like this over Zoom has become the new normal. And we expect this to continue if we're going to keep safe.
Definitely. And let me bring in 3T. And when you think about the workforce, a lot needs to also change. Soft skills is actually at the top of that list as technology and digital take over. What does that mean for those who are in institutions of higher learning going forward?
I think the challenge now is on some of these institutions of higher learning to inculcate soft skills and the uptake of soft skills into some of the programs that they are running. It's become very evident that soft skills are so essential. And given that work is changing, it's become even more essential. And I'm sure my colleagues, Tesh included, would probably tell us more about what's happening from the technology perspective. You get to realize that it's not just the content of what you're learning, And it's not just the technology, but you have to have soft skills, for example, like communication. So we're here in this platform, we're joining in virtually. How different is it from actually being in a studio, sitting there next to each other, being able to feed off the energy of each other and being able to still communicate what we need to communicate. So it's become even more important for us to encourage people to understand what these soft skills are. And I'm sure we'll talk more about them later.
Definitely. And let me bring in George Owala. Some could say technology is something that I cannot afford. I'm not into that space, especially when you think about the rural areas, informal settlements. But there is also room for improvement for those in these spaces, right?
Definitely, there is room for improvement in people who are in rural areas, because right now technology has really expanded and is reaching every corner of the world. Even here in Kenya, we now have the Google balloons, which are giving internet and enabling people in very remote areas like in Turkana or Wajir or far-flung corners of maybe Kilifi to be able to access opportunities. And these opportunities could be opportunities to learn using the technology that's available through training. It could also be opportunities to be able to earn a living or work. And so as VSO, we've been able to support young people in very remote areas to be able to respond to these changes during this COVID situation by providing them with soft skills that they need, like being more creative or innovative, and enabling them to be better decision makers, because those skills will be important. And it doesn't matter whether you are living in an urban setting or you are living in a rural area, you still have to make a living. And so it's critical that we harness the opportunities that are provided by technology to be able to respond to the day-to-day needs. COVID has created challenges. Half the people who are employed have lost their jobs over the last maybe 5 months or so. If you look at different professions, people have changed from what maybe they were doing 3 to 4 months ago to now. So it's important to be really adaptive, and some of these things you don't necessarily need a platform to learn. It's more out of your own initiative. So it's still possible also to transform the lives of people in the rural areas or those who are seeking employment and income.
Yes, it is. Now, Julie, definitely productivity is a question going forward, and especially when it comes to working from home. For the longest of time, the employer has expected 8 to 5 is what he or she expects from you, and that is what actually equates to productivity. I think that has been challenged now, right?
Yes, I completely agree with you. Now, what we are looking at, even from our HR perspective, is most employers should stop micromanaging and focus more on output. Because when I'm at home, there's less, you cannot watch me over CCTV. I know some of the employers, what they do, when it gets to 8 or 9, I call all my employees to make sure they've now started working. But you see, you cannot micromanage that process. I can just lie to you, pick the call and tell you, yes, I'm working. What you should focus more is on output. So what employers should focus now is, have you created clarity of roles and what you require in terms of output at the end of the day? So you can be having reports at the end of the day, at the end of the week, or at the end of the month. As long as work is done, then you should not equate productivity to time spent sitting down in the office. Yes.
Okay, and Joram, definitely as we look at the time put into work, those in business, it's you show up for the work to get done, for you to get the money in. So this is not something new, but what can we borrow from the business side of things on a personal level to ensure that you get the best out of either working from home or in the office?
Yeah. I think one of the most important things you can do at this point is personal discipline. And we also have to remember that even as we do this remote working at this point, the conditions are not very ideal because the children are at home.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things that can, impact the productivity of staff members. And employers also need to understand that, their employees are also not in a very ideal circumstance at home. So we cannot expect maybe 100% 100% productivity because parents are put under pressure, to be able to, some kids are still going to school over Zoom and that has to be overseen. But to make sure that work is still getting done, I think it's putting in a lot of personal discipline. So, people who are self-employed probably do this already quite a bit, but everyone now in the organization has to learn to be very disciplined, come up with a schedule of how to get things done, even amidst all the disruptions, to make sure that the outputs that Juliet is talking about are done by the end of the day.
Okay, and Tesh, you are an employer, and there has been concern with all the balls in the air that you need to juggle at home. The women might be discriminated against in as far as how they perform. Is this something that you're looking into and enabling all and sundry, even as we take up the new way of working?
Yeah, so this is a discussion we've had internally. Over 40% of my team are actually women. And interestingly enough, I think it's giving them an opportunity to be able to bond more with their families and those who have younger kids. But the most important thing is that they are able to still get the output done. And I think it's not only a women issue, but even men are now working from home. I know relationships are being challenged. However, this is something that is going to come out with a better net effect overall in terms of interactions at home, as well as balancing with your work.
Okay.
So this is going to be interesting.
All right. And for you, 3T, even as we prepare the workforce for the job market, definitely, as we have said, a lot has changed. But what do we need to take on a personal level, even as we pursue the different career paths going forward?
Well, I think we've already heard from Joram about the aspect of self-discipline. We are looking at situations like has already been described about having to juggle a lot of stuff that's going on. Juliet mentioned about work-life balance. And in fact, what we should now be looking at is work-life integration more than balance, because balance sort of suggests that you could have two things and they knock each other off. But integration is perhaps a word that helps us to understand how we can incorporate all the different things that we have going on. So the homeschooling, perhaps you yourself might be in school, you might have work that's going on, you have other commitments, you have family. And as we look at all that, I think one of the key skills that we need to be talking about here is time management, because you can easily find yourself overwhelmed with very many things that are going on in a normal day. And if you're not disciplined, if you don't have the skill of being able to manage your time well, you'll find that the day is over. I don't know about you, Gladys, but for me, I've been feeling like the days have been moving faster ever since we got into this COVID situation. So I think time management is really going to be a very, very key skill going forward.
Okay, and George, even as we look at the different ways of getting a source of income, there are those that have to look at other skill set. And right now, being multi-skilled is what is being said will help you ride the tide. How does this look like, and what would you suggest?
It is important to find out which are the expanding industries. Right now, with the COVID situation, there are many opportunities that have emerged. Project management skills will be important, being able to bring things together and being able to work effectively. The health sector has great opportunities of even using digital technologies to enhance and provide opportunities for people to access health using digital platforms, delivery of medicines remotely, etc. We've also seen that there are some sectors that have been impacted so much, like the hotel, the travel and leisure. These have been impacted. So it's important for one, if you are in that space that has been impacted so much, to look at how do you reinvent yourself? what kind of skills will you really need for the future? So what's critical is that you become more innovative, more entrepreneurial. Use this opportunity now to learn new skills that will enable you to navigate through this change, because you need to be set for the future. It's important for you to go digital if you don't have those skill sets, because it will be important. In the next 100 years, we'll be working through some platform where we are online or we are virtual. We won't be converging in person. So it's important for us to really think about, how do I re-engineer myself? How do I improve and enhance my CV so that I'm relevant for this new world?
Okay, and speaking of which, everything we know about the future of work is being shaped by 5 trends: globalization, technology, changing demographics, new behaviors, and mobility. For the first time, these 5 trends are coming together to force organizations to change the way they think about how work gets done. Is your organization ready for these 5 trends and for the future of work? Take a look.
There is something going on in the world of work today. Some kind of a evolution that's forcing organizations to think differently about what it means to be an employee or a manager, and even what it means to actually work. There are 5 trends that are causing this evolution to happen. 5 trends that are forcing organizations to challenge everything they know about work. These 5 trends are globalization, mobility, millennials and changing demographics, new behaviors, and technology. Globalization is causing the world to become like one giant city. The language that you speak, the culture that you subscribe to, the currency that you transact in, and where you are physically located are all starting to matter much less. This means that organizations can tap into talent anywhere in the world. Mobility is allowing us to stay connected to people and information anytime, anywhere, and on any device. This means that work is no longer a place you go to, it's something that you carry with you in your pocket wherever you are. Millennials are expected to comprise 50% of the workforce by 2020 and 75% of the workforce by 2025. Millennials are digital natives that expect and want to work in ways that reflect the year we live in. Most people live in 2015, but work at companies that operate like they are in 1975. Although millennials are driving enormous organizational change, it's important to remember that the future employee is anyone that is changing their behavior and mindset to adapt to the changing workforce. This means it doesn't matter if that person is 22 or 62. New behaviors are rapidly entering our organizations. For example, we are all comfortable living a more public life. We share our thoughts in blogs, post reviews on Yelp, have our entire professional history on LinkedIn, share pictures on Instagram, rant on Twitter, and engage in open conversations on Facebook. In fact, virtually every aspect of business behavior has changed, including the way we share, communicate, collaborate, teach, learn, find information, access technology, and create content. This is forcing organizations to fundamentally rethink and reimagine the way we work. Technologies such as big data, wearable devices, collaboration platforms, the Internet of Things, and cloud computing are enabling us to work in new ways while keeping us more engaged and productive. In the future of work, technology is the central nervous system of the organization that enables everything else to function. Together, these 5 trends, combined with an unprecedented war for talent, is forcing organizations to shift their mentality from creating a place where they assume employees need to work there to creating an environment where employees want to work there. When we think about the future of work, the organizations that can most effectively make this shift from need to want are the ones who will be able to attract and retain top talent. This means that if your organization doesn't think about and plan for the future of work, then your organization will have no future.
And clearly then, as we look at the future of work, career and business, it's not only the employee who is tasked to actually change with the times, but also the employer. And speaking of which, Juliet, clearly, even with how companies need to change to adapt to the new times, companies need to invest in their employees and also harness these critical skills needed to move forward, right?
Yes.
How should that be done?
So most companies right now are taking advantage of the free online courses. So they're encouraging the employees now to go and take up courses. There are some courses on LinkedIn. There are different courses digitally which can enhance your work. Apart from just making sure people are given more skills in terms of training, resources are also important. Because when you previously, when you used to work in the office, you'd find I have a computer, I have an IT department, I have a HR department. But when I'm working from home, I'm everything. I'm the IT department, I'm the HR department. So the companies need to invest more in supporting the employees to make sure they produce. So making sure they have internet, making sure they have a laptop, a working laptop, and of course, employees are able to access other things like IT department, HR department remotely. Yes.
And how about investing in these other skills, taking them through the trainings to ensure that each person actually is up to par for the new future?
Let's not put a lot of responsibility to the employers.
Yes.
It's also you as the employee, you also need to take initiative. And now starting, because as an employer, for example, for me, I don't know what is happening all over the world. So I'd expect you as the employee to take initiative and now start researching about courses that you can do. And then you can just keep me updated. If there's any fee, of course, I'll invest if you're a good employee.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Joram, even as we talk about the employer, one thing that has come out is that competition is now more than ever because an employer can seek your talent from anywhere in the world. What does that mean for you as the employee and also for the employers?
I think largely because I work with employers more.
Yes.
As an employer, it means that you're competing for talent, not just locally, but globally. But it also means that even other people in other parts of the world are competing for the talent that you may have. So it means that if you have employees that you're not taking care of, they could easily be looking for opportunities, especially on the online platforms that link people to jobs all over the world. They could be, also supplementing their income, so their productivity could be affected if you're not taking very good care of them. So for employers, it means that you need to take extra caution in just like what Juliet was talking about. How do you upgrade their skills? How do you make sure they are relevant? How do you make sure they keep innovative enough to keep your organization looking forward and also adapting to the challenges that we have today? So it's also looking ahead and saying that because the competition is global, it means you have to have globally minded employees. Their skills need to be globally relevant, and it also means that even for you potentially as an employer that you also have global opportunities. There are many people who've started doing certain things online and they find that the clientele is not just Kenyan but coming from all over the world. So while there are certain challenges, it's also presenting a lot of opportunities globally, even for the employers at this point in time.
Okay, and speaking of employers, Tesh, you're one. The threats and opportunities of technology and the digital economy are real. As an employer, what have you put in place to ensure you not only have talent from all over the world, but also keep your own that is really standing out for your company?
Yes, so the emphasis that we have put now and over the years is on company culture. So encouraging an atmosphere where there is a lot of innovation, there's a lot of collaboration, accessibility in terms of the employees being able to reach out to employers and seek advice from their employer. So we've built a really great culture. And as I mentioned, partial remote working is not new to us, for example. And these are things that incentivize employees to stick with you as long as they keep feeling challenged and you are creating an impact in the industry, which is something that we've seen millennials are really care about right now. More than just the work is more like what impact are they creating through the work that they do.
And has this opportunity also opened up the possibility of hiring talent from other parts of the world?
Yes, definitely there are. So guys are now using platforms like LinkedIn to source for talent, and given even interviews are now moving to virtual interviews, then hiring developers or people with certain skill sets that do not need to be on the ground has become very easy. And that means from a pool of a few million people, now you have billions of people who you can look onto for talent.
Okay, and for you, Thriti, even as we prepare for this global job market, what are those vital things you need to probably get so that your CV looks better and you can be head-hunted from all over the world?
So I would say it's a combination of the soft skills that we mentioned earlier and more of the technical skills that you need to start thinking about. Let me start with the soft skills. So employers are also looking for individuals who are self-aware. So with the aspect of self-awareness, you get to understand what you can do, what you can't do, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And this puts you in a position where you know what you can take up and you know where you need help. And you need to be able to ask for help when you find that something is not an area of strength for you. But this also ties in with things like emotional intelligence, because this is an area that employers are looking for. It's probably an area that cannot be substituted technology. These are individuals who need to understand how to build interpersonal relationships. And even more so now that we're in the virtual space. So how do I work with my teammates, even though we're not in the same room? How do we deliver on a project that needs to be delivered, and it needs to be delivered on time? From the technical or the more subject-based or knowledge-based things. And so a lot of people think that innovation is about coming up with something that is new. But innovation could also mean something that you already have, that you are re-engineering and you're tweaking and doing in a different way that adds value to your organization or your business. And for us to start thinking about innovation, we need to expose young people to things like design-centered thinking that allows them to look at the problem from all the different angles, that makes them think through what are the options, and then continuously improve a process as you are putting it in place. So I would say it's like a combination of the soft skills and also technical knowledge that is needed to do the jobs.
Okay, and George, innovation and business clearly are walking hand in hand, especially during this time for the youth. Even the president yesterday, it is time for the youth to reimagine business. What does that mean?
I think having youth develop the right mindset is very critical. So giving them the skills that enable them to be more creative. They need to be people who can think with a different mind. We've heard about, Thriti has talked about design thinking, helping young people to also take advantage of the opportunities that are closest to them, so that they can now use those as a learning platform to build and work towards this global village that we are part of. So I think it's very critical that young people get the right kind of mindsets and are trained and supported and even mentored and coached. So I think this is an opportunity and a challenge also to the industry in terms of how are we preparing young people to the world of work. The education system, last year we did a survey across 5 countries in Africa where we were looking at the future of work. And one of the biggest hindrances was the education system, because the education system hadn't moved with the times. And so it's important for us to think beyond just the academics, but what kind of competencies and skills are really needed, and the mindsets that will enable people to be more self-driven, an entrepreneurial type of mindset. Because if you are thinking like an entrepreneur, you are always geared towards solving problems. And then leadership is also very critical. So helping young people to think like leaders and ensure that they're able to carry people along, because the networks that you create and the platforms that you create will be very important for you to build your business or build your idea. But I think I would also want to challenge government in the sense that it needs to provide the right infrastructure, but also provide the right policy framework to enable young people to access more and more opportunities instead of maybe being a hindrance in terms of maybe just looking at what are the opportunities maybe to tax this new emerging industry without thinking about how do we support young people to succeed and thrive in this space before we start thinking about how do we tax them.
Okay, and Patricia, a lot is being lost in this process. As we speak, many companies are shedding their employees. Many businesses have had to let go of their employees. What are some of the things that employers should keep in mind, even as you try to cost cut, but ensure you keep your best talent?
I think the first thing is there's the human aspect, of course. And of course, when you're running a business, you're also looking at the end goal, which is profit. What employers should look at is who brings in more value. And in terms of looking at the future, now, if I've employed somebody, what are they going to bring for me in the future? That's why I've talked about role clarity is very important. Yes. Having clear outputs, deliverables is also important. Because if somebody is delivering, even if they're working from home, India, or whatever we've seen, the main aspect should be on delivery and not on small aspects. What we've seen right now is most companies are looking for a leeway where they can cut costs. And the easiest is the corona excuse.
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes you just look at the bigger picture because you might have clients who might need those skill sets. So you just have to audit your team and see who's against the company and who is for the company. Yeah.
And Joram, some of the things that have also been lost is that personal touch with your employees, getting to understand how they work, what their needs are, and standing with them during tough times. How can employers ensure that even with the changing way of working, that this is not completely wiped out?
Yeah. So some of the things we've been advising, because we work with entrepreneurs a lot, some of our clients, is to make sure that you have a system of keeping in touch with your employees. So what I've seen a lot of companies do is maybe every 1 or 2 days, they have something called a huddle or, touching base, maybe in the morning, where they come together just to find out, is everyone still okay? Seeing that we have a health situation and people are away from each other, somebody could fall sick and you do not know, or somebody could have lost a relative and you're not aware. So we are asking people to keep that human touch, as Juliet is also saying. Make sure that every 2 or 3 days you're meeting with the entire team, you're not just looking at the technical aspects of output, but also finding out, are people okay? Are their family members okay? Are they coping okay? Employers also have to look into the mental well-being of their employees at this time, because we have an overarching COVID situation that could be depressing some people. So can you make resources available for people to attend counseling or, have the opportunity to have people walk with them through this situation, or even take them just through sessions? It could be on Zoom, where they're taught how to cope with this current situation from a mental well-being perspective.
Okay, and Tesh, for you, even as you try to balance the cost of doing business, keeping the best talent, I mean, how are you keeping the balance in the first place?
Start going down. I think a lot of employers are faced by the question of whether you have to let staff go or how do you go about it. In our case, what we ended up doing is being very transparent with the team, and we all agreed together that rather than let some people go, let's all lower our salaries to be able to cope and push the business further together, rather than some of us facing losing their jobs. So this is what we did, and this still speaks to part of the company culture and being able to show your employees that you really care for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, so yeah, generally I think that's empathy is the most important thing, and really being deliberate about how you communicate both with your employees and with your stakeholders during challenging times.
Okay, and then there is something else that's being challenged, taking on permanent staff as opposed to taking employees on a contract. Is this something that you're also rethinking?
So not really. In terms of our business, we're still having clients. Our clients are facing a lot of challenges, but they need us now more than ever. So we're operating as normal. However, we're not really looking at hiring new staff, but more of how can we balance out the workload with the staff we have and be able to push our business and our clients' businesses further.
Okay, now
To survive.
thank you. And Thariti, definitely, even as people are changing and shifting how they retain their employees or remunerate them, for those that are looking into the workforce, into the getting into the workforce, how critical is it to prepare them to create business, to create work, as opposed to being employees?
Earlier, I think it was Joram who mentioned about, or was it George, who mentioned about having the right kind of mindset that is needed to go into these situations. And as we move along, even in the world of academia, it's going to be absolutely critical for our education system to get young people, millennials particularly, to think about the fact that it's no longer a 9-to-5 opportunity that you're looking for, that you need to think from an entrepreneurial mindset. You need to think about where the work is and what opportunities there are so that you're able to see them and you're able to grab onto them. I think we can safely say that looking for an 8-to-5 job is no longer in the cards. Maybe even we might be willing to say that if you were looking for a government job, perhaps that might be an option, but I foresee a situation where even that will eventually have to accommodate the changes. So I think having the right kind of outlook and being able to move with the time. So being flexible, I think, is another key thing that is important for our young people, that if in their minds they created a career path that they thought they were going to follow, then now with the changes that are coming about, they need to rethink that and see or find different ways of drawing out their career path. And I think that's where career coaching really comes in, to try to understand or to help the individuals to understand what is it that they want from life. Someone also mentioned about the fact that millennials want to do work that is value adding, and that makes a difference in the society. So how can you make a difference in the society and yet still do something that you're passionate about and you have a talent for? Because I think we've already seen that we are all here on this earth for a certain duration of time, but life is actually very short. So, instead of spending the time doing things that we feel we must do because we want to earn a living, we need to think about things that we can do, that we enjoy, that we're passionate about, and can generate income for us. And in order to do that, I think the world has just given us a whole lot of opportunities. Earlier, Juliet was saying, you could be at the beach, for example, but you're still doing your work. It's the output that really matters. If I had the opportunity to be on this call sitting on a beach somewhere, I'd be thrilled, So just grabbing hold of those opportunities and opening our eyes to see what those opportunities may be is going to be very important.
Okay, we're about to take a short break, but it will be interesting to hear from George when we come back how to ensure that you stay relevant in these changing times. And but before I take that break, I'm told that you are talking to us even as we asked you that question of the day, how COVID-19 has affected your source of income. And I'll start off with some here. Blessed Favored says, I haven't received my salary from February. Hope our work will be back to normal soon. Life is becoming unbearable each day. I'm afraid facing every new day, a reality that is faced by many. Awiti O'Meal says, not affected my writing and farming business, but recruitment is intensely impacted negatively. We hear you. Patrick Son Okodoi says, staying without a job is painful, and this is a reality of many who've lost their sources of income. He also says, I don't have salary for 3 months. He hasn't received his salary for 3 months. Eric Kiplimo Kosgei says, yes, no more salary, life in hell. Okay, this is why we're speaking about salary versus your own income. Anne says, I look to God for supply. He has not been affected by the pandemic, and neither will all his beloved children. I hear you. Faith is a good thing, but you've got to do something on your end. Freedom Wangi says, closing down of my business. It was a bookshop due to 0 sales. Oh, Paulistana Frida. Nelson Arwasa says, I was retrenched indefinitely, and this is the reality that many have to face today. Jay Makana says, it cut my earnings by half and doubled the expenses. I'm running the business on a negative scale. I feel like I want to quit. Don't quit just yet, and we'll be talking about how you can be able to do that and stay afloat. Akinyi, I had to close down my business. Yet another reality for many business owners. Jacinta Mwingereza says, no job, no money. We stay indoors with the kids. They eat a lot non-stop. Now no food and school fees. We paid just in school's accounts. This is such a terrible situation. We hear you, Jacinta. And then Simon Peter says, to me, I've lost my job. My bosses come from nowhere and say now work no more. Okay, I guess the job, he was told the job is gone. Mossa says, bad as private teachers, we are nothing, completely zero. Well, it is interesting considering a lot of clients or parents have taken up the school e-learning rather. Bricote Empire says the entertainment industry, I recall I had to refund clients. Even the little funds I had invested elsewhere had to be refunded, and the investment shut down. Yes, this has also hit the entertainment world hard. Tobias says, yes, actually various ways, especially some of us who work in the transport sector, we have really deteriorated. Hope we will be better again. Well, maybe the opening of the boundaries will make that situation better. Olelo says, when schools are closed, suppliers are not paid. That is a reality. And a last one here for now, Brian Arasa, who says, no work at all, just staying home has really affected because we are hustlers. We hear you, Brian, and thank you for speaking to us. Remember, the question is, how has this pandemic affected your source of income, even as we share on ways of the future of work, career, and business, and how to ride the tide and come out on top. We'll be right back.
Pishi Home Chef is looking for the best home chef. Are you amazing at cooking that ugali, choma in that nyama, or can you bake that cake that keeps your neighbor awake? Show us your skills in the kitchen by recording a short video or taking a picture of your best dish or post it on any social media using the hashtag Pishi Home Chef. Then tune in to your world on NTV from 7 a.m. every Friday to discover if you are this week's Pishi Home Chef. Go to pishi.co.ke for more details. Change can be disruptive, but Business Daily has got you covered from Monday to Friday. Get evolving trends, ingenious business ideas, and the latest tech content in the new market dynamic, and exciting lifestyle content in the new normal environment. Business Daily. More possibilities.
Taught us sallallahu alayhi wasallam that we should keep cleanliness. Actually, he said that cleanliness is what is best for a Muslim. And from him, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, hand washing, which is part of cleanliness, hand washing, that we wash our hands, we wash our faces, we wash every time with soap. This is part of what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught us.
In partnership with the Ministry of Health, let's join together in following the set protocols. Wear your mask, sanitize, maintain social distance, and have your temperature checked each time you visit our stores. Naivas saves you money.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gashanja. Today we focus on the future of work, career and business, even in the face of this pandemic. And I'm still joined by Juliet Gatteri. She is the founder of Alternate Doors Consulting, 3T engineer who is a career and development coach, Joram Winamo, who is a co-founder and managing partner at Wild, Tesh Mbabu, who is a technology entrepreneur, George Owala, who is a country director at the Voluntary Service Overseas. Thank you for staying with me. And George, over to you. Even at a time where jobs are being lost, businesses are being lost, you have to rethink how to stay relevant in this market. How exactly do you do that?
It is important for one to think about the current skill sets that they have and what's relevant for the market and work towards improving their skill sets. Understanding the job market is really critical so that you are really demand driven in terms of the kind of skills that you develop at this point in time. And I think the COVID situation has provided a great platform where people can access a lot of online courses, and some of them have even been delivered free. I know that Harvard Business School for a period of almost 90 days was delivering free, high quality, top-notch business management training for those who could register. So it is important that you look at what does the market really need? What kind of skills do I develop now so that I can be relevant as we go forward? I think also finding the right guidance and mentors to support you through the journey is important. COVID-19 is a new thing for everyone, but if you are really good at change management in other setups, then you can provide that support to others who are trying to navigate through this space. And I think also it's important to consider the soft skills that you really need. It's a combination of both having the technical skills, but also the soft skills. So creativity, innovation is important, decision making, critical problem solving are critical and very important. And then also planning and decision making. So if you can be able to develop these skills, even now amidst all these challenges, then you are really making yourself ready for the world of work, which is an open world where you can work in any part without being limited by geography.
Now, Tesh, the globe has become a village, and definitely you've got to ensure you are at par with your peers, if not better. How are you looking at ensuring that you stay relevant, but also stay top of mind?
Yeah, so we have to think about innovation, and this is something everybody needs to think about, both employees and employers. So if you're an employee and you lost your job, you need to start thinking innovatively around what are the opportunities that are opening up in this new age that you can tap into, and digging deep into your skill set is really important. And I think that the world needs entrepreneurship now more than ever. So yeah, we need to all dig deep to figure out if this is something we'd like to consider, and that idea that you've had and for a long time and you haven't been able to get to do it, to be a good time to upskill, get the relevant, use the relevant resources that are available to figure out if you can start a business at this time. I think a lot of great businesses were actually born during recession. So like if you look at 2008, 2009, there were really huge businesses like Airbnb and Uber born. So this is speaking from a technology point of view, but I'm sure there are many more businesses that were born by entrepreneurs who felt like they had lost jobs or they couldn't see any brighter future in terms of employment, and decided to go into entrepreneurship and really build successful ventures. So it's a challenge that we can all take up.
You are a tech entrepreneur, and definitely that field will have a lot more people looking into it. How does marketing, making sure that when somebody is looking for services, they think of you and not the next guy?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is to, because I think Triti mentioned things like personal skills, because things like network that you've been able to build, not being afraid to reach out to your network, are both for asking for a job, but also trying to get clients on board would be very important. So it's not only about the technology or the product that you build, the idea, it's more about how are you able to share your vision on the idea with the world, as well as figure out the right distribution channels for your idea. So leverage on digital platforms to market it, but most importantly, start with the network that you have.
Okay. Now, in today's career world, it is not uncommon to seek a job change once or twice or even 5 times in one's professional career. However, before you take the plunge, there are some things to take into consideration. Here are our top 10 things to consider before changing that job.
Choosing whether or not to change careers can be tough. In order to make the right decision, it's important to evaluate the reasons you're interested in making that change. Here are 4 common reasons, along with some things to consider before making a decision. Number 1. You're bored at work. This is a valid reason, but be sure to identify the source of the boredom. Do you occasionally have boring days, or have you become bored with the work itself? It's possible to change your daily routine, but if you've lost interest in your field, making a career change might be a good idea. Number 2. You're unhappy with your income. Take a look at the potential for advancement in your current career. If there are opportunities for a promotion or a raise, you may want to stick with it. If not, you might consider seeking out a new career. However, it's worth noting that changing fields can sometimes come with an initial pay cut, especially if you're moving into more of an entry-level position. Number 3. Your work is negatively affecting your physical or mental health. Be sure to pinpoint the source of this suffering. Is it specific to your particular job, or do all jobs in your career cause this discomfort? This can help you decide if you need a new job in your field or a new career altogether. Number 4. You feel that your talents and abilities aren't being used to their full potential. It's important to feel value in the work that you do. Consider discussing your feelings with your supervisor first, especially if you still feel passionate about the work you do. Other duties or projects might be available that could make use of your abilities. At the end of the day, whether or not you want to change careers is your decision. Trust yourself to make the call that's best for you.
Really pertinent suggestions there, but definitely it really is up to you how you want to shape your career. And Juliet, even as we think about this, normally when something bad happens, people hold on to what they know best. But it is important to also think about how to expand your territories in the new normal. How do you do that, apart from what has been touched on, to ensure that you do not lose your footing?
Okay. So the first thing, I think the video was quite clear.
Yes.
Do a self-audit. Just know what you like, what you don't like, and why you want to change careers. The other thing is look at careers which have long term. So you don't want another corona to come, and then again now you are starting now from scratch. So look at something that is on a long-term basis. And what, from my experience when we are doing recruitment and interviews, is most candidates fail to do a lot of research. So right now, we live in an age of information. So the best thing, even if you want to change your career, just go and do a lot of research. There's YouTube, there's LinkedIn, and we live in a world where the advanced economies are a bit advanced than us in terms of career changes. So you can just go on LinkedIn and check people who have similar careers, the ones that you want to change to. I think they've also mentioned that you'll have to take a pay cut.
Yes.
But sometimes not even a pay cut, you'll have to work for free. So for example, if somebody wants to become a HR consultant like what I'm currently doing, they can come and just ask me, I want to work under you for 3 months and I just want to shadow you and see how you work. So I think those are the things that you need to consider. You can work with me for 1 month and then you see this is not for me. Then now you can move on to other things that interest you.
Okay. And Joram, at a time where clearly changing jobs or having multiple skill sets is important, at times employers have shrugged on people who have too many jobs on their CV. Going forward, how does that look like?
I think it's good to put the right mind frame to the crisis that's currently happening. It's not going to be here forever. This is something that's going to pass. And out of every crisis, there's winners and losers. So the key question is, how do I get on the winning side? What is it that's required? What's going to happen post-COVID in terms of opportunities? So you can see there's a lot going on to digital, onto deliveries, onto new ways of working. Can I position myself to benefit from that? I think as Tash had mentioned, out of every crisis, we usually have a wave of innovation and economic growth that comes after that. So just to encourage people, because I also saw from the comments, people are in quite a bit of despair.
Yeah.
This is going to pass. This is a once in a 100-year occurrence. The last time we had something like this was in, I think, 1920 or something of the sort. So as this passes, how do I position myself to benefit? How do I build the skills that are required for what's going to come after this? If I've been caught flat-footed because I lacked certain skills like maybe digital skills, can I build them at this time so that as we come out of this wave, I build up on that and manage to benefit and be on the winning side of this crisis?
Okay, so back to the employer. How do we manage when somebody comes to you, they've had a couple of jobs on their CV? That doesn't necessarily mean you can't hold down a job. It just means you're multifaceted, right?
Yes. I think the era of, holding jobs for a long time, and especially with millennials, is done. So I think even as an employer, maybe you need to be looking at, somebody may only be with me for 2 years, but how do I get the most? How do I develop that person within those 2 years so that, I get a return on investment based on how I'm training them and that kind of thing. So it's changing mindsets. In the past, people would stay in a job until they retire. But nowadays, I think even millennials just do 2 years on every stint. So as an employer, you're looking for very specific skills and very specific output. And that's what we should focus on, not be so held up on, I've invested in this person and now they are going to leave, or they have so many jobs on their CV. No, can they deliver what I need for the period they're going to be here? And when they're gone, wish them well. So don't hold on too much to people anymore. That era is completely gone.
Okay, I see Juliet shaking her head. Do you agree with this as the employer or the recruiter?
I completely agree. because right now what we are moving towards a gig economy.
Yes.
So as long as you deliver for me and probably I'm paying you a quota, then I'm accepting you to go and look for other 3 or 4 other companies who you can accumulate and make more money. Yeah, I think the time has changed whereby we used to work for one job. It's not even during this time. I think it was previously, now transitioning slowly. So most companies you'd find they will not give you an open-ended contract. So the contract will last 2 years. After 2 years, then either I can choose to renew or just let you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Tesh, they talk about jack of all trades, and for some this has worked, for others it hasn't. You started your career 18 years old, built it up to what it is today, but you've done different things along the way. How has that built up to who you are today?
Yeah, good question. So I think being adaptable to change has been the most important thing for me. So when I started out, literally I just had a laptop, and that was my briefcase office. And I started out in graphic and web design. I was studying computer science at the time. Immediately I graduated, I felt that I was upskilled enough to go into software engineering, and started at a software company out of that. And from that, I've been able to build various products that leverage on technology to help people and businesses operate better. And I think the main learning point through my short career journey has been really iterating, pivoting, learning from your mistakes, because some entrepreneurship ventures will fail. However, it's the attitude and mindset that you have that is most important, and that will get you to a winning stage. So even as we battle with the pandemic right now, I think the most important thing is, as everyone is really just focused on the very short term, the people who will start thinking about medium term and long term and start setting up businesses and structures to win in the medium and long term will be the most successful. So including employees who are thinking about really upskilling rather than complaining about the current situation will, by the time the economy opens up and employers are looking to go back into recruiting, of course, the people who really built up their skills at this time and made good use of their time rather than just sitting at home will be at a bigger advantage.
Okay, and 3T, I think the millennials especially are very afraid of that word that Tesh just used, failure. How do you prepare these people, the workforce, for the inevitable chance of failure?
Yes, I think you've hit the nail on the head on that one. And I must say that over the last couple of weeks, in my conversations with millennials, especially those who are looking to transition in terms of their careers, this word comes up quite a lot, fear of failure. And when you look back, I think it has something to do with the society, the way we are brought up. We are made to, or we are conditioned to think that failure is a really bad thing. It's even ingrained in us from an education perspective. So when you fail an exam, it's a bad thing, it's a shameful thing, and you know that's something that should not be happening. But when you look at it very critically, I think failure is a wonderful stepping stone for learning, because when you don't get the results that you desire, when you make a mistake, you learn from that mistake. And what better way actually to learn than to learn from the mistakes? I think I would rather a situation where you make a mistake and you learn from it than you never try at all because you're paralyzed by the fear of failure. But to your question around how do we get people to see that failure is not the end of the world, I think we need to change the way we parent. I think we need to change the way we approach work. Even in our workplaces, when our team members make mistakes, we need to be more encouraging. We need to be enlisting more of coaching skills that allow them to see where they've gone wrong and how they can come out of these challenges, because we don't want a situation where we're just talking about the problem. We need to find a solution to whatever problem that someone is facing. So we need to encourage the fact that every problem can get a solution. There are various options out there. It's okay to fail. It is not going to be the end of the world. And I think we need to encourage people that even if they get to the point where things don't work out in quite the way they want it to, then it's better to have tried and not achieved something than to never have tried at all. And of course, this then brings us to the aspect of resilience. And something you said, Gladys, when you were speaking to one of the viewers who was saying they feel like giving up. You know, it's how do we cultivate resilience in people such that we move forward no matter what, whether it's failure, whether it's something that hasn't gone right, we always move forward, we never give up.
Very well said. Now, let's look at the world of business, and traders of second-hand products, popularly known as mitumba, can heave a sigh of relief after President Uhuru Kenyatta announced that the government will set out protocols for resumption of imports. This comes just a day after the Mitumba Association had urged the government to relax restriction on imports to help save the industry. Judith Cherono with the details.
According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Kenya imported 1,077,160 tons of mitumba valued at about 17 billion shillings in the first 6 months of 2019. Business in this industry has, however, ground to a halt ever since the government imposed restrictions on movement in March. The sector could soon have a new lease of life following today's directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
The Ministry of Health, in conjunction with the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, shall establish protocols for the resumption of the importation and sale of imported second-hand clothing.
On Sunday, the Mitumba Association of Kenya had tabled its plea to the state to step in and avert the loss of jobs and dwindling incomes, which were leaving many vulnerable. The association says its members are ready to comply with all protocols for resumption of business.
2 weeks ago, we submitted a set of comprehensive business protocols to guide the continued importation of trading of mitumba in the country. The guidelines are in the tandem with the similar guidelines issued by the ministry.
Mitumba businesses are not only a source of income for many households, but also a source of cost-effective products for many who face tight budgets, especially in light of the COVID-19 shock. Judith Cherono, NTV.
George Owala, there are those who are saying, I have never seen the inside of a classroom. I am street smart and making and eking a living, and I'm doing well at it. What is the future for those that walk in these shoes?
I think it's important for them to also think about how to adapt and change with the way the world is going. We've seen that COVID-19 has provided new opportunities for everyone. In the sense that you need to think very differently. So you could be a small-scale trader, you could be doing mitumba business, but you need to now look at what opportunities can now you get out of this new normal or the new way of working. Not just being stuck in the past and doing things the way you used to do previously. You can now start connecting with your clients very differently through even the mobile phone, which is available to almost everyone, so that you're not just waiting for customers and clients to come to you, but you're also reaching to them using the technology. And it's important to be street smart in the sense that you need to find clear ways of being able to support and enable your clients to feel different about your business. You earlier on talked about marketing. How am I marketing myself? Am I positioning myself differently from my neighbor who's also maybe selling the same kind of product? So there is opportunities to innovate, to create new things, and even diversify the business and look at new connections. So we can't say that, there are some businesses that are just stuck. Even agriculture is changing and digitizing pretty quickly. So there is opportunity for everyone if we think differently and we think entrepreneurially.
Okay, and definitely this is something we're looking into and encouraging everyone to look beyond just the skill sets you have. You also have to tap into something else to ride this tide. And as we take another short break, I'm looking at more of your feedback, even as we asked you that question today. How has the pandemic affected your source of income? A lot of those coming through, if I can have them on the screen. Michael says it has hurt many, but it's a learning experience, and let's pray. Very true. It is a learning experience for all. King says business is bringing in less than 50% of its previous earnings. As George has said, it's time to rethink and to innovate on how to get better and align with the changing times. Justo says, I exhausted my savings last week. It's now a matter of survival between now and resumption of work for us private tutors. I hear you, Justo. Another here from Anna, who says, I'm working, but I was deducted half of my salary because we don't have clients. This is a reality for many. Anthony says, was in a private school and I lost the job. I take it you are teacher Pole Sana. James Ndongo says the future of work is really promising, but we definitely need to position our youth to take advantage of these opportunities. Otherwise, it will be a case so many opportunities with no relevant manpower, and what that means is that other people in the global village will grab these before we scale up. Very well said. And now that you can employ anyone from any part of the world. And the last one here from Nyaga Caroline, who says, my clubs closed. Yes, with the entertainment industry hard hit, definitely. And with our curfew ongoing, it really has been hit hard. When we come back, we shall hear the last comments from our speakers, even as we share ideas on how to ride the tide and look forward to the future of work, career, and business. Stay with us.
Chuka University is the ultimate choice. With the state-of-the-art learning facilities, comprehensive curricula, you are guaranteed to achieve your career dreams. Our vibrant student clubs will nurture you holistically. Join our September intake and experience world-class training. Chuka University. Knowledge is wealth.
Imeshika.
chai yenye quality ya kipekee kwa bei nafuu. Faraja Premium Tea imeshika.
Kenya's pensions industry. 1.3 trillion shillings worth of assets, yet only 20 out of every 100 workers are covered. Are Kenyans adequately preparing for life after retirement?
Take your age, divide by 2 if you're starting saving then.
And with the government paying out 120 billion shillings in pensions per annum, are retirees using these funds prudently?
Most Kenyans are taking that money as a lump sum. For 90% of Kenyans, that lump sum is used up within 3 years.
This Tuesday, Business Redefined speaks exclusively to the Zamara Group Chief Executive Officer Sandeep Raishura to discuss the state of the pensions industry.
In partnership with the Ministry of Health, let's join together in following the set protocols. Wear your mask, sanitize, maintain social distance, and have your temperature checked each time you visit our stores. Naivas saves you money.
It is your world. My name is Gladys Gashanja. Let's take a look at the other world during this pandemic. And the Lamborghini was just to make the kids happy because of a pandemic, says Mohammed Jahanzeb, the managing director of a Pakistani supermarket in Dubai, who delivers mangoes to local families in a Lamborghini Huracan sports car. Now, Jahanzeb launched a campaign to spread a message of love in the Gulf Emirate by offering a short joyride in the supercar after delivering a minimum order of 100 Emirati dirhams, about $27 for more than a half a dozen varieties of Pakistani mangoes. Very selfless. Now, dozens of artists and volunteers are the finishing touches to Black Lives Matter mural in Manhattan's Foley Square in front of New York County Supreme Court and not far from NYPD headquarters. This is where it has to be, says BG183, a prominent graffiti artist leading the initiative, explaining the artwork should be visible for several years.
You're going to have people walking and driving. So they're going to drive from the letter B all the way down, and they're going to see Black Lives Matter. So the impact is there. People that work here, they're going to see it. People that just come here for the first time, they're going to see it. People that don't know about it, going to travel to see it. So it's not the point to see the mural, it's to really know that this is happening, and we putting our foot down, and it has to stop. This is where it has to be at, close to them. You can't put this in the community, where it happens. Here is the people that makes it happen.
We're here in a very significant part of the city, and it's really great to see that art has a heavy impact in the movement. I think that sometimes with social issues, people try to write and people try to speak, and if we don't have the words, I think that art is a great way to communicate how you feel and to connect with other people. when somebody says wow, or somebody, screams when they're running by, it means that they felt something. It might not be monetary, but there is an impact there. It means that I did connect with somebody with the art, and so I think that's the point here.
Elsewhere, there is a 5-star bling on offer at Vietnam's Dolce Hanoi Gold and Lake Hotel, which claims to be the world's first gold-plated hotel. Everything from the bathtub to the coffee cups is plated in 24-karat gold at the newly opened establishment, which also features a gold-plated infinity pool on the roof. But guests will need to fork out $250 or more for one of the 260 rooms. That must be $250,000 at the 25-story hotel in downtown Hanoi, where even meals may be mixed with a gold substance. The hotel is targeting everyone from ordinary people to the super rich who can come to check in both physically and on social media and advertise their stay to the world, according to the hotel owners. Turkey is allowing wedding ceremonies again after several months of a ban due to coronavirus. But the protective mask is now obligatory for the brides as well as the guests. Filling the opportunity, Turkish designers are now creating masks to go with the dresses, combining safety and fashion. Pinar Bent, a wedding dress designer, says they either ask for simple things, satin or lycra, but fine. Others ask for stones or beads to be added to the normal protective masks that we normally use. Everyone has a different taste. Just like with wedding dresses, all models are different. And just like we are going to make them a special wedding dress, we are going to make them a special mask.
Çenenin altına biraz doğru al maskeni istersen gözlerin çizsin.
Şey alacağım, kopya alacağım.
Veya sen röportaj veriyormuşuz gibi bahaneye takıyorum. Ay bana ter içinde kal. Manları falan da çek yani.
Life has surely changed. Now, in Cape Town, a NAS and a workers' union representative criticized South Africa's handling of the coronavirus pandemic with regard to the rights and safety of health workers. In the worst heat province in South Africa, hospital beds are filling up fast, leaving many working in fear and causing some to worry about a serious crisis in the coming weeks.
Sister, can you open the gate?
Our conversation, the future of work, career and business. And I'll start off with you, Tesh. A question coming here is that it is important to actually protect the employees from the cyber, or rather offer cybersecurity as it was. Is this something that you're looking into? Okay, we shall pass on Tesh as we figure out our technical hitch here. But how important is it for that to happen, Joram?
So definitely, as people are working from home, they probably don't have the same infrastructure that they do back at the office. So it is definitely important, especially people who work in very information-sensitive industries, for employers to make sure that even as people are working from home, that the kind of connectivity that they are given and the kind of setups they have on their laptops makes sure that the information they're working with is protected. So it's definitely important to make sure that whether it's internal IT departments or your service providers, that you make sure that cybersecurity is at the top of your mind. We've seen people being hacked on Zoom and people storming into meetings and these kinds of things. So it's important at this time to make sure that your IT provider or your internal IT department is taking cybersecurity as a very important thing to make sure that no information leaks out, or that you have any accidents as you have company meetings or webinars and the like.
Okay, I believe Tesh now is stable. Tesh, cybersecurity is actually one of the things that those in the tech world are looking out for. How does it look like for you?
Yeah, I think the most important part is for companies who hold data, either their personal data or client data that is very sensitive, is to figure out systems, cybersecurity systems that will ensure that this information is not leaked to parties that should not have access to it. So it's, as George said, it's a matter of making sure that you have the right systems in place.
Okay, and even as we look at the changing world of work, career and business, Juliet, going into this, there's some things that need to be looked into. For example, what is the best thing to align yourself with? And also, who are the people you need to work for? What would be your parting shot on this?
For me to advise to anyone, view yourself as a brand or as a business. So the way business are changing the way they work, you as the employee or somebody who wants to work for another company, you should view yourself as such and now start changing yourself towards what businesses are changing. And also take initiative. What we've noticed is most employees are waiting. So I've lost my job, or my salary has been cut into half. I'm still waiting, but I'm not taking initiative. The more you take initiative, the more your employer will see you as a valuable employee. And now you can be able to work out something around that. Even if it's not your designated role, they can add you additional roles. So view yourself as a brand or as a business.
Okay, and how about being humane, especially now that there's so many balls to balance in the air, especially when it comes to working from home?
Okay, so I think Joram mentioned this, most employers should understand that I have children, so they can welcome in a few distractions here and there. So that's part of being humane as well. We've also noticed people are working longer hours when they are working from home, because there's that guilt aspect. You feel that working from home is not sufficient, so you have to overcompensate. So you'll find a lot of calls, working until 10 or midnight. So employers should also make sure, I think another panelist mentioned, it's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration.
Yeah.
So just making sure the employees have that integration, and also making sure they stop working. So if you are pushing to have a meeting at 6 or 7, you should avoid such things.
So let's work within the working hours.
Exactly. And also have some initiatives. So let's say you can say Friday. I know one of my clients, what they do, they have something called lunch and learn. So they don't talk about anything work related. So they just convene, have lunch. So you can even send lunch to your employees, and then you convene on Zoom, and then now just somebody will now talk about something, or you just have a fun game. Yeah, so at least the employees they feel part of the company.
So a different way of doing team building.
Exactly. Yeah, and also it builds the company culture. So your employees would be more focused on let's achieve this, let's build this business together. We don't want our company, not your company, to fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Joram, definitely the employers have to tighten their belts. We're talking about cost cutting. That office space has to be relooked, which touches on real estate also. What does the future look like, and how can the employer ride the tide?
Yeah, so I know a lot of employers are rethinking their business models completely. People letting go of real estate because they've realized that they can do with less, not necessarily the big spaces that they needed before. So we are asking a lot of people to relook at their business models But largely we are also saying that look at the long term. Do not look at this as just, like the world is coming to an end. How can we rethink our business for the future? If we've realized that we can do deliveries or that we can, do things differently, can this become part and parcel of how we do business going forward? If we've realized that we can do meetings on Zoom, can we not then spend 2 hours in traffic going for meetings with clients? So this is a time to rethink completely, but telling people to also stay positive, stay visible with your clients. Do not go underground at this time, even if there is no activity with them. Find a way of connecting with them during this period. And it's also time to experiment and try out new things that may be uncomfortable even for the employers. But without trying new things, we'll not be able to know what it is that we can do going into the future.
Very well said. Now, Tesh, definitely many people walking into this would expect instant gratification. But from your experience, this is not the case. What is your word, clarion call?
Yeah, I like Joram's point because it emphasizes on reprioritizing.
Yes.
I think that's really important. In this time, we need to what they call repurpose your assets. That is your time. Think about the things like real estate. Think about how to slim costs and put your energies into the long term. Don't be bogged down by the challenges we're facing now. Really think about this in terms of how can you emerge, or how can we emerge as a better nation, as better people, as a better employee or employer. Take advantage of the situation to innovate and focus your energies on creating more value, more so in the mid to long term.
Okay, and 3T, Juliet mentioned how at some point you might have to work for free. Now, this is not something most people would like to consider, but it is the reality, especially when you're trying to get that experience that every employer is looking for. Your word of advice for those preparing for the workforce or the job market?
So indeed, it is true that at the moment there's a lot of requests for internships to organizations, but like we've just said, organizations are also finding it challenging in terms of being able to support them from a financial point of view. So what can you do as a young person going into the workforce? Start now. Start now. And look at any and all opportunities for you to gain experience. So experience can be gained, say, for example, if you are in a university and your university has different clubs that are being run, participate in those clubs. And yes, these clubs, aside from maybe the ones that deal with sports, there are lots of clubs that have moved online. So there are opportunities for you to learn skills. There are opportunities for you to learn how to work with people. And there are also opportunities for you to gain experience. So that could be a great place to start. If you're one of those who did not take advantage of that opportunity, or maybe you didn't have access to that opportunity, then you still have the ability to tap into your network and see where you can get in and gain experience. Okay, so I think Tesh was saying, join a company for 3 months and see where you can learn from those who are already in there, because work experience is really key. Even for you to keep building your skills, it's important that you have some element of work experience. And I think with the new normal of moving everything online and having virtual working spaces, it's important for us to understand how that's going to be, as compared to thinking, let me wait for Corona to end, because like we said, it doesn't look like we're going to really end this pandemic. It's here with us. So we may not wait for an opportunity to be in a physical space. Let's look for opportunities that are there even within the virtual spaces.
Thank you, 3T. And George Owala, agribusiness, I think, is booming at a time people are at home. Somebody mentioned that children are eating a lot, and we've seen a lot of boot markets across our estates. But many don't want to get their hands dirty or are very picky about the spaces they would like to get into. Your words of advice?
it is important that you look at what will be giving you money in the future. People have to eat, people have to continue living. So agriculture provides new opportunities for people to earn a living. I think it's important to also look at within that space of agriculture, what is it that you are best placed to produce? Because different crops and plants will thrive in different agroecological zones. So if you're in an area where maize is what will do well, you need to think about what type of maize will it be? Will I have to wait a whole year, or will it have to be something that can be put to market faster? But also looking at value addition, because that's where the money is. It's not in just growing and selling from maybe farm and putting it onto the table, but it's what happens in between that's important. So even young people, it's important for them to think about what are the opportunities that are provided by agriculture. Within that space of agribusiness, how can we be more innovative and utilize technology so that we can reach the consumer faster, ensure that whatever they're getting is of nutritious value to them, and also enables them to be able to do something different with their lives. So I think generally what would be critical going forward is that you really think through your business model, whether you're in agribusiness or whether you are in a different sector. It's important to look at, is this model going to help me in the future? And then also diversify. Don't just be caught in doing things in the same way. Diversification will be very important. Adopt new technologies of doing things and producing. Within agriculture space, there are many opportunities that are opening up where you're looking at value addition, you're looking at ensuring that the food is produced in ethically, because people will like that. The millennials and Generation Z generation are very keen on where did this come from? Was it ethically done? So looking at those things and then moving backwards and saying, how do I create a niche market out of this? Because people are more interested in things that are done naturally. Even within the agriculture space, people want to eat natural foods. They don't want fertilizers and other chemicals in it. So looking at that space and saying, how do we find our niche? And then how do we maximize that niche? Because every crisis provides lots of opportunities. We've just seen a guy delivering mangoes in a Lamborghini. Yeah. That in itself is bold, it's audacious, and it enables you to really tap a different audience, and the media will be interested in capturing your story, and that takes you global and enables you to be more relevant. But be flexible, learn to be lean, and also diversify your business.
Thank you so much, George Owala, Country Director, Voluntary Service Overseas. We are also joined by Tesh Mbabu, who is a technology entrepreneur, Joram Winamo, co-founder and managing partner at Wild, a 3T engineer who is a career and personal development coach, and of course, Juliet Gateri, who is the founder of Alternate Doors Consulting, a human resource and recruitment solutions company. Thank you to all for such an incisive and very knowledgeable conversation. And at this point, did you know that the average office worker spends 50 minutes a day looking for lost files and other items? That makes it almost an hour a day. Talk about making use of your time wisely. Now, did you also know that before the Pregnancy Discrimination Act in 1978, American women could get fired from a job for being pregnant? Yes, a lot has changed in the workforce. Did you also know that 61% of employees are more productive when the dress code is relaxed? This explains a lot about how people act at work. And well, also, did you know that you can change your life going forward even as we face the pandemic? And of course, look at the future of work and careers. I think that has been made very, very clear on how you can make use of that and also ride the tide and come out on top. Now, before I bid you farewell, I'm told you're still speaking to us even as we asked you how this pandemic has impacted your source of income. Tom Kimbaraza says Rais Uhuru alifanya vizuri kuondoa lockdown ndio uchumi wa nchi uimarike. Sasa ni kujukumu la kila mwananchi na mpenda nchi kudumisha nidhamu ya hali juu ili kujiepusha au kukomesha corona. Personal responsibility very critical. Michael says, it has hurt many, but it's a learning experience. I think we had touched on this one. Do we have others? Kenny says COVID-19 has costed us jobs, businesses to fail, also the government giving the funds to the rich, leaving the poor to suffer as always. Kenny, that is your valid opinion. We have John Mutai who says business is at a standstill as people were told to stay at home. Definitely so, but the boundaries have opened. Readjustment with keeping with the parameters of keeping COVID-19 at bay. Refined Bill says working from home is stressful, mostly because of distractions. Then that office feeling of collaboration doesn't exist at home. That has been talked about, and clearly a lot of employee need adjustment needs to be done going forward, even as we embrace the future of work, career, and business. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Your World. Tomorrow we look at the changing face of healthcare. A lot has changed. We're seeing empty hospitals. Where are people getting their healthcare? And also, what does that mean for the stakeholders going forward in ensuring they continue to offer quality healthcare? We answer that question and many more tomorrow. See you then.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming.